Hello and welcome to The Hill. Tonight, free from Russia and headed home. The major prisoner swap negotiated by the White House and the Kremlin.
And now, their brutal ordeal is over, and they're free.
Donald Trump and Vice President Harris giving two totally different responses. Plus, back to the border, J.D. Vance trying to get back on script.
Has Kamala Harris done anything you've asked her to do? She is the border czar. Has your border czar done anything you've asked her to do? And the answer is no.
And tonight, Trump has a surprising new stop on his calendar. Also this evening, the Olympics fight that has made its way into the presidential race. And what went wrong with the U.S. military and The Rock. It is 96 days until November 5th. Do you know who and what you're voting for? This is The Hill on NewsNation. Hello, good evening. I'm Blake Berman. At this hour, 4 Americans are over the Atlantic, heading back home after being freed from Russian captivity. The White House releasing this image of the 4 Americans at the heart of this major prisoner swap, negotiated by President Biden, his team, and Putin's Russia, along with several other nations. It is obviously a joyous moment as Americans who were wrongly detained by Putin are now free. Paul Whelan, for example, spending 2,043 days in Russian prisons. But it has also become political. And this is what we will likely see over the next 96 days. Whatever the issues, foreign or domestic, expected or surprise, there will be a response, a critique, and a likely debate.
President Trump has said repeatedly that he could have gotten the hostages out without giving anything in exchange. What do you say to that? What do you say to President Trump now, former president?
Why didn't he do it when he was president?
Sir, what did you...
All right, so that from President Biden earlier today. We heard from the Vice President, Kamala Harris, speaking this afternoon as well, and she made these remarks to reporters.
As we celebrate today's news, we must also keep front of mind that there are other Americans that are unjustly being held in places around the world, and we will never stop fighting for their release.
Now, Donald Trump had questions as he released the statement saying in part, quote, "Are we releasing murderers, killers, or thugs? Just curious because we never make good deals at anything, but especially hostage swaps. Our negotiators are always an embarrassment to us." We begin tonight with Alina Habba. She is a senior advisor for Donald Trump's 2024 campaign, also one of the attorneys who has represented the former president as well. Alina, thanks for being with us here on The Hill. First time, I believe. Nice to have you in.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So Donald Trump today, let's start on this this moment, because he questioned if payments were made as a result of this prisoner swap. The White House came forward and said there weren't any cash payments that were made. In the final year or so of the Trump administration, November 2019 to October 2020, there were 4 different prisoner exchanges that Donald Trump oversaw. Why not, Alina, at this point in time, just celebrate the moment here as they're on their way back to U.S. soil?
You know why not? Because they haven't done it for 3.5 years. Okay, the Wall Street Journal journalist, that journalist has been held for how long? And the fact that Joe Biden is now blaming Trump when it wasn't. Literally. And this man is blaming President Trump. Imagine, he doesn't even have his faculties. So you know why not? Because there has to be a difference between actual victories and election campaign moves. And that's where I stand. I don't buy it. So I'm thrilled that we're getting hostages back. But there are a lot of hostages all over the world that we need to get back. They have failed us. And to do so less than 100 days before an election is frankly obvious. It is not for the benefit of those families. It is solely for the benefit of the Kamala Harris and the destructive Democrat campaign.
Well, I'm sure the families love to have them back, of course, but you think this is purely tied to the election?
I'm sure. Why weren't they home? Why weren't they home before? If you could cut a deal now, why didn't you cut a deal then? President Trump would never have allowed this to go on this long, because there has to be something called fear and respect. And that is what is lacking currently in the administration.
All right, let's turn to the campaign. Donald Trump was out on the trail last night in Pennsylvania. You were one of the speakers in the arena last night in Harrisburg. I want to ask you about some comments that you made last night, Alina. I'll get your reaction on the other side.
I am a strong woman, a mom, a lawyer, and an American. And unlike you, Kamala, I know who my roots are. I know where I come from.
What did you mean there about a strong woman? Do you not believe that the current vice president is a strong woman?
No, I do not. No, I do not. I think that a strong woman would have come forward and done her duty for Americans, would have fixed the border like she was in charge of, would have not allowed our country to go to this kind of demise. I do not respect Ms. Harris at all, quite honestly. So, no, I do not. I don't think she's a strong woman. I think she was a puppet for 3.5 years, and I think that now she is doing exactly what we suspected. She is coming out, trying not to giggle and thinking she's going to fool the American people. She was part of the Biden administration that has failed this country, and we need a change.
What do you mean about the roots there when you talked about, I know where my roots are, I know where I came from? Why go there?
Yeah, because she's completely ruined and disguised her policies 150 times over. She has consistently said, oh, I'm for fracking. I'm not against fracking. Now she's for fracking. We were in Pennsylvania talking about that. I am consistent, so is President Trump. You know who's not consistent? Them. She is completely using anything and everything she can. And when her policies fail her, I have a real problem with her hiding behind other things like I'm a female, I'm this, I'm that. I don't do that. I don't do that. And guess what? My parents are immigrants. So you know what? I have a real problem with that, and I can say it. I can say it because I don't hide behind those things. I'm consistent. And inconsistency is the problem. This is a campaign move, and I'm not here for it, frankly.
You know, why is President Trump talking about this? We know about the comments that he made about her heritage, whether she's Asian, whether she is black. There's new polling out, Alina, from the AP. Is it good or bad for a woman, for the country rather, to elect a woman? Basically, half the country says it doesn't matter. Is it good or bad for the country to elect a person of color? Nearly 6 in 10 say it doesn't matter. So if that's where the country is right now, why go there?
Yeah, I'm there, too. I think the reality of the situation is we have somebody who is, again, like I just said, when your policies fail you, and I'll just say this, when your policies fail you, when you can't speak about the actual issues and you have to say, oh, maybe I screwed up on the border and economics, maybe I hid that Joe Biden had a cognitive decline from the American people for 3.5 years as I stood as his vice president. But hey, you're just attacking me because I'm a woman. You're just attacking me because of this, that, and the other. You know what that's called? That's called weakness. And I'm not down for it. I'm not here for it because you know what?
Okay.
I'll tell you why. I didn't hide behind it for 3 years. And as a woman, and I'm speaking for me and as a spokesperson for the president, as a woman who comes from immigrant background, I have never wavered. I have never used it. I am proud of it. But God knows I don't use it as a defense when CNN and MSNBC and liberal media want to hit me every single day. I don't care. You want to hit me? I'll take it because I'm strong. And Ms. Kamala Harris, she's just not.
Speaking of defense, as I mentioned, Alina, you were one of the attorneys for Donald Trump. There was a ruling against him today that allows the gag order in the New York case to still stay in place. He is set to be sentenced in mid-September. The Supreme Court is out until October. Are you out of options here? Or is this the end of it from the legal front?
Well, I'm not the attorney on that case, but obviously I was the attorney on other cases. I can say that we're never out of options. There are ways that we will work through the system. When you get a bad decision, you can always go up the chain. In New York, you go through the state court, then you go up. We've seen it before. We've gone up to the Supreme Court before if we have to. I think the First Amendment right, I'm going to speak generally for the American people, is a very important one. We are no longer in trial. There is no witness testimony coming forward. There is only a sentencing. So that is between the judge, the prosecutors, and the defense attorneys. I really can't understand it. And I think if you look at the order, and I don't know if you have, but there was no discussion about the analysis. There was no analysis. So that's telling, and I think we'll have to just work our way through that like we always do. Okay.
All right. Alina Habba, Trump campaign advisor, thanks for being with us here on the Hill. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, joining me, you got it. Joining me today throughout the hour, Scott Bolden, NewsNation political contributor, former chairman of the D.C. Democratic Party. Lauren Wright, Princeton University political scientist, NewsNation political contributor as well. Max Rose, the former D.C. Or the former congressman from the state of New York, and already mixing it up with Mick Mulvaney, former Trump White House chief of staff, NewsNation contributor as well. Hello to you all. Nice to have you all in. A lot there with Alina Habba. Mick, let me just start with you. What was your takeaway there?
Pretty good defense of the president. I think she's good on television, and she steered the issues to where she wanted to take them. She didn't take the bait on the race issue, and I thought it was a nice defense. It's a little aggressive for my taste, but again, I don't think I'm the target audience for who she's speaking to.
What is she so mad about? And what is she so defensive about? When has Kamala Harris ever said, vote for me because I'm a woman and I'm East Indian or I'm African American? I don't remember any of that, and I follow Democratic politics and Republican politics quite a bit. And why isn't Kamala Harris a strong woman? My goodness, she's been a DA, an attorney general for the largest state, the most populous state. She's been a senator, and she's been a vice president, whether you agree with her performance or not. And right now, she's giving Donald Trump a run for his money. I didn't think it was a good interview at all, actually. I'm trying to follow her, and I can't follow her.
You made the point last night that Trump should be talking about border immigration, then immigration, border.
Agree.
But if you're going to leave the other topics, leave them to your surrogates. Here's why I say it's a good interview. This is the right structure to sort of break down into a campaign, which is that the principal is out talking about the issues. The principals talk about immigration, Israel, inflation.
But he's not. He's also talking personally about Kamala Harris in a way that's not advantageous to a campaign that has every advantage on the issues. Republicans have the advantage on the economy, immigration, education, crime, all the way down the line. It would be a landslide if he could just stay away from the personal stuff.
My point is this, she's doing her job.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I don't know.
But she's personally attacking on his behalf, and that's not a winning formula.
I'll tell you something
that's how you do it.
Something that caught my attention today, Max, was we focus on Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada. Donald Trump put an announcement out today. He's going to Montana next week.
Yep.
And for all the noise that's around Donald Trump and for all of the conversation about this moment and movement with Kamala Harris, and it's there, Donald Trump clearly feels pretty good that he's going to Montana to try to knock out John Tester, who's in a Senate race. Does he not? Like, you don't make that move unless you're feeling good about where you are.
No, absolutely. It's an incredible sign of weakness.
How so?
Yeah. I mean, the only reason why he would ever go to Montana is because his own candidate is not doing well. Otherwise, he would focus on those states. Look, I don't think the Democrats have this in the bag. Certainly the Republicans don't have it in the bag either as it pertains to the presidential race. Why in God's name would he ever go to Montana unless he got a series of phone calls that said, our polls suck and we have to do something about it?
So you're telling me that Kamala Harris is never going to Ohio for Sheldon Whitehouse? Or Sherrod Brown?
No, I'm in fact saying the opposite. That she would, because Sherrod's got a really...
Why would she go to Ohio if he's doing fine without her?
He's not.
These races are going to be tight.
Whoa. Sherrod Brown is in the tightest race of his life, and if Kamala Harris can be helpful, she will be there in a second. But John Tester...
So why is it a sign of strength for her to go to Ohio,
Donald
but Trump to go to Montana?
Won Montana by over 20 points.
I don't think this is about Montana at the national level, though. This is about, I think, him feeling...
I think it's about,
him feeling comfortable.
This is 100%.
Yeah, it's about the Senate race. Yeah.
Or maybe
that should be in the bag, though.
Yeah, but it doesn't make political sense. Why, if you're going to win Montana anyway, and I understand the Tester issue, but he went to New York as well. He went to...
That was during the trial. During the trial in Mixon.
Okay, but he goes to all of these places. Like, he goes to New York because he wants to show that he's got black and brown voter support, which he doesn't at the level they think they do. But then why spend time and money in New York when, even if you get 10 or 20% of the black vote, you're not going to win New York?
Because you should try. You should always try.
Let me leave it.
It won't make a difference in the Electoral College.
Let me leave it this way, Mick. Is it a sign that Donald Trump feels real good about things that he's going to spend time in a Senate race?
I think you're reading too much into this. this. I think it's all about the Tester race. Yes, Donald Trump won Montana by 20 points, but we've always known as Republicans the Senate race was going to be tight. Tester has beaten our candidate the last couple of times around. But look, Donald Trump goes to New York to raise money. Kamala Harris is going to go to Florida to raise money. She's not going to win Florida. She doesn't have a chance to
but that's fundraising. That's talking about political points and trying to win the election.
But there's all sorts of things that go into a campaign other than just trying to win the swing states.
All right, still to come here on the Hill over the next 45 minutes. It is what's old, new again. The strategy involving the ability of the vice president to answer questions from the press. What's going on there? Plus all of 46 seconds. That's how long this Olympics match lasted. Why this latest controversy is now becoming a focal point, gender controversy, in the race for the White House. And military recruitment and The Rock. Why that match didn't land. You're watching The Hill here on NewsNation. Back in a few.
Play and Alexa.
This is The Making of America from the Jefferson Media Group. In 1820, future women's rights activist Susan B. Anthony was born into a Quaker family who opposed slavery and were committed to equal rights for women everywhere. At age 28, she hosted the first Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls, New York. She opposed the passage of the 14th and 15th Amendments extending voting rights to African American men because those voting rights bills had not included women. She was also the founder of the National Women's Suffrage Association, which proved instrumental in helping pass the 19th Amendment granting women's right to vote in 1920, 14 years after her death. This has been The Making of America. I'm Michael Emerson, and you can visit us at jeffersonmediagroup.com.
All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. So Vice President Harris is officially one step closer to securing her spot in the presidential race. Delegates for the Democratic National Committee are now voting in its virtual roll call. Harris took a break from the campaign trail today to celebrate the life of the late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Before departing Houston, Texas today, the vice president stopped to address the historic prisoner swap.
It gives me great comfort to know that their horrible ordeal is finally over. There are other Americans that are unjustly being held in places around the world, and we will never stop fighting for their release.
All right, so a statement there from the vice president, but you'll notice again with the chance to speak, potentially to take questions, she did not. Harris has now been the presumptive Democratic nominee, give or take unofficially 10 days now, and has taken one question and gave a two-word response, not yet, when asked the other day if she has chosen a running mate. Max, Scott, what about it? When does she got to, I saw the hoopla and the conversation and coverage around Donald Trump yesterday, and rightfully so. He was taking questions. Yep. She hasn't done it yet. Are they going to try to sort of run the Biden playbook with her?
No.
When's she going to come out?
Look, I think very soon. Like what I think we've forgotten here, because the news cycle has been so incredibly crazy, is that she has only been the presumptive nominee for a couple of weeks here. So that surely will happen. But if we want to ask questions about who's willing to face the pressure, Donald Trump's the one that's refusing to debate her in just a month or so. So I don't think that she'll do interviews, she'll do the whole thing. I'm interested to see if Trump will actually debate her, though.
I want to say, hey, hold your horses. We'll get there. It's only been 10 days, as my colleague said. 20 days, 30 days. The debate is a real issue, but you can't hide a presidential candidate or the presidential nominee. And nobody, I don't believe, hides Biden either. The media and the Republicans have bought into this narrative that something's deceptive about the Biden-Harris.
I mean, he wasn't
because of his age.
He wasn't. He wasn't accessible, though. I mean, I think
who decides how many press conferences presidents and vice presidents do, or presidential candidates?
The president does.
Who decides? And that's okay. That's his discretion. Let that doesn't mean there's something wrong or nefarious about him not doing press conferences.
I think Max is probably right on this. This is an issue until it's not. It's an issue until she takes her first press conference. Just like we hadn't heard from Biden in a long time, and then he did his, after the debate, then he did his sit-down. It didn't go well, but the issue changed to why aren't you talking to what you actually said when you were talking. I think Max is right. This goes away as soon as she takes her first
I've made 2 points today, and
Nick's agreed with both. I read a fascinating.
I'm still not sure I'm good with the beard.
I read a fascinating story this week. It's in Politico from Willie Brown, right? San Francisco legend, mentor to Kamala Harris, and he was interviewed before all this happened with Joe Biden out and her in. Here's what Willie Brown said, Kamala Harris's mentor, in part. He said, quote, this is from the article. He said that she ought to embrace her hazy ideological categorization because, quote, if she keeps people continually guessing, then she can just adjust the interpretation of your guess every time she sees you. I'm looking at, Lauren, some of what the VP has done. She no longer wants to ban fracking, now opposes an assault weapons buyback program, plans now to sign a bipartisan border bill into law. There's a lot of movement to the middle here. Is Willie Brown right?
Well, that didn't work for her in the 2020 primary with busing when she attacked Biden and then flip-flopped and then dropped out in 2019. I mean, the opposite is also true. If you follow this playbook, your opponent can completely define you because there's a vacuum of positions. So I think she should do the opposite. She needs to clearly state either that she plans a complete continuation of the Biden administration policies, which we were told it was the Biden-Harris administration. She's the last decision maker in the room. It's an equal partnership. Either that's true or she has her own policies that are different from Biden's that she was espousing in 2020. I think voters deserve to know what the truth is.
I think there's a real perception and energy where she's being reintroduced to the public as the presidential nominee, and that she's not going to adopt all of Biden's positions. You call them flip-flops. I call them growth, and I know everybody laughs at me about that because I'm a lawyer. But
that's lawyer talk. You know that.
But I do think it's growth, and I think you're going to see her separate herself from the administration in a really subtle way beginning, because you got to remember, she's still the vice president, right? She's still part of the Biden-Harris leadership team.
And look, this is happening on both sides. I mean, look at all the school lockdowns that happened under the Trump administration. Look at all the vaccine mandates that happened during the Trump administration. And now he's come out and said that, I oppose them, this and that, when they happened under his watch. Look at all the riots that happened under the Trump administration. And now he's come out saying that he's pro-public safety.
He's moved on abortion. He's moved on TikTok. He's moved on a lot.
You can't take the politics out of politics. That's why we have a professional.
We know where he stands on things like immigration.
Here's the risk that she runs. Who's left? Okay, who's left that's undecided? There's not that many people who are undecided, but there's a couple, right? And supposedly both of the candidates can be fighting over them. If I can paint my opponent as being a flip-flopper or just telling you what you want to hear to get your vote, I think that resonates with these people who are left. Okay. And that's the risk that she runs.
Aren't they both doing that then?
Huge risk.
Because the Republican nominee certainly does that repeatedly.
Still to come here on the Hill. 4 Americans, 6 nations, one historic release. The Americans set to be home later this evening after years of captivity in some cases. What was Putin's calculation at this point in time? Plus, outrage over the Olympics, the controversial boxing match that has Republicans throwing political jabs at Democrats. Keep it here. You're watching The Hill. All right, welcome back to The Hill. Tonight, they are free. Americans Evan Gershkovich and Paul Whelan will soon be back on United States soil. They were part of an historic, complex, 24-person, 6-nation prisoner swap that culminated today. In all, 4 Americans are among the 16 persons released by Russia. 8 Russians, by the way, were also released by the United States, Germany, Norway, Slovenia, and Poland. In describing the exchange, the White House says the president repeatedly asked for updates. A key moment in the negotiations was a call that the president had with Slovenia's prime minister on July 21st, the same night as President Biden's big address from the Oval. The administration also disclosing the imprisoned Russian human rights activist Alexei Navalny was supposed to be a part of the deal, but he died in February. NewsNation's Joe Khalil live at the White House with how this came together and the president's reaction. Joe, they had been working on this for quite some time. How did we get to this point?
Yeah, they pulled the curtain back today, Blake, and said this was months and months of diplomatic negotiation behind the scenes with 5 or 6 of our closest allies all working together. And you pull back the curtain even more. The White House does want to make this moment a legacy point for Joe Biden. There were a couple of tells. One, as you pointed out, they said, quick to release the fact that on the day that President Biden announced he was not going to run for re-election, an hour before that, he was on the phone with the Slovenian Prime Minister finalizing this deal. They also emphasized how close it took our allies working together. That is a point they want to be as part of Joe Biden's legacy, is reunifying our especially European allies. And they also talked about American ideals, the fact that the 16 people we got released, 7 of them were actually Russian dissidents whose only crime was complaining and talking about Vladimir Putin and their own regime. This is what President Biden said. Take a listen.
That's who we are in the United States. We stand for freedom, for liberty, for justice, not only for our own people, but for others as well. And that's why all Americans can take pride in what we've achieved today.
Like, obviously, a lot of this was about the emotion surrounding what these families are now going to be able to do, reunite, and that is happening close to midnight tonight. The families of the 3 American citizens at Joint Base Andrews with President Biden and the Vice President. They will be reuniting all of them for the first time.
Joe Khalil, live for us at the White House. Joe, thank you. Let's talk now about the swap, the implications, and why now? How did all of this come together now? William Taylor is the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine and joins us once again here on the Hill. Ambassador Taylor, thanks for being back with us. We've heard a lot of this from the American side, right? From the White House today, the images of these 4 headed back now to the United States. I wonder, though, on the flip, why do you think Vladimir Putin decided to do this deal at this point in time?
Blake, of course, a great question. No one really knows. No one ever knows what's in Vladimir Putin's head. But we can guess. There are a couple of things. One, he wanted his buddy, this assassin in the German jail. He wanted him back. And he wanted to get him back as soon as he could. That was number one. But also, I got to believe that Putin is worried about his situation on the ground in Ukraine. It's not going particularly well. You would think that the Russians would be able to have their way. Well, they haven't. And he is a bit worried about that. So he's looking for some way to kind of reach out, I imagine. But again, no one knows what's in Putin's head.
We were talking in the commercial break with Mick Mulvaney, the former Trump White House chief of staff. We made that exact point. You have no idea what's in Vladimir Putin's head, right? It's just purely a guess at this point. But, you know, J.D. Vance, the running mate with Donald Trump, essentially made the argument today that this shows, in his view, in their view, that maybe Vladimir Putin maybe took this deal now in case there's a Trump presidency. Vance saying, quote, he said in part, I think it's because bad guys all over the world recognize Donald Trump's about to be back in office, so they are cleaning house. Might there be something to that?
Again, who knows? Who knows? My bet is Putin didn't make those kinds of calculations. My bet is he wanted that FSB, KGB guy back, and he wanted it away. Now, one of the things that Putin probably had in mind was this assassin, this FSB guy that Putin wanted back, is in German jails.
So tell me about him real quick.
The German-U.S. connection, I think, is important.
Yeah, so Vadim Krazikov, Russian citizen, charged with murdering a former Chechen fighter in Berlin in 2019. It was a very public crime. He used a fake passport to carry out the killing. What do you know about him? Tell us about him.
Well, what we know is he came out of the same organization as Vladimir Putin. They knew each other. Putin had been very good to this man. This man had shown his loyalty all the way through to Putin. Putin wanted to get him back. And he's in a German jail. And Putin had the hostage, had several American hostages. But so Biden had to somehow get the Germans to go along. Putin may have had that in mind.
Okay. Ambassador William Taylor, former ambassador to Ukraine. Great to see you as always, sir. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Blake.
You got it. Okay, so the top line here is these Americans are coming home, and we expect them home in the upcoming hours. It is fantastic news. We started the show talking about the politics. Donald Trump, what he's saying, President Biden, what he said today. But what goes into this, Mick, former White House chief of staff? Yeah. What goes into, like, you don't get to this point overnight or over month, really.
No. In fact, one of the most interesting things I think you mentioned in the intro was the fact that Navalny was originally supposed to be part of this, which means this goes back at least as far as February, because that's when he died.
And months before then to even set that up.
Something like this. I mean, listen, they can come together very quickly. There's no question about it. It certainly has. There's examples of that throughout our history, but typically these are really, really, really hard to do. It's a good day for the White House. It's a good day for the country. Listen, I was critical of the deal that brought Brittany Griner home because I thought we gave up too much for that. But we don't know the terms of this deal yet. I think it's a good time to sort of celebrate, enjoy the fact there's Americans coming home. And if we did give away too much, we can talk about that when we find the facts.
You know, I think it's what's even to add to your comments, how very extraordinary this day is. That is that you have multiple prisoner swaps, the most since the Cold War. You had several countries, including Russia and the U.S., and the hardworking people in our federal government who make up the National Security Agency and Department of State and whatever agencies, those folks behind the scenes that pulled off this incredible prisoner swap. In my lifetime, I've never seen anything like it.
And with no leaks.
So what about
no leaks? And it had to be complicated. The negotiations had to be multi-tiered and complicated, and had dead spots where they thought the deal wasn't going to work, and then it came together. So God bless them.
Look, if the definition of patriotism is wanting good things for the United States of America, then there's no organization that is less patriotic than the Donald Trump presidential campaign.
So you're going there.
It's unbelievable, right? For the next 90 days or whatever it is, every single time something good happens, they will do everything in their power to get into the media echo chamber and criticize it and talk about how it somehow would have been better if they were around, or God knows what else. They want things to go poorly, not just for the president, but for every single American, and that to me is disgraceful.
That's not patriotism either.
That's way too general. I'll play devil's advocate. Isn't it reasonable to ask questions about what the contours of the deal were and whether this incentivizes hostile nations in the future from snatching Americans off the street and holding them for ransom? These are very basic questions. I agree it's unbelievably positive for the Biden administration, and I applaud them on it, but we're allowed to ask what the details are.
Let me leave you with this, because the House Speaker Mike Johnson, the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell put out a statement today saying a lot of what you would expect, right, of how great this is for the individuals and their families. But they said this: as we renew our call for the return of persons wrongfully detained by the Kremlin, we recognize that trading hardened Russian criminals for innocent Americans does little to discourage Putin's reprehensible behavior. And I guess that's part of the conversation to come down the road. I would also note that the State Department has put forth a notice in the recent weeks: do not travel to Russia. And President Biden was asked about that earlier today. And it's a reminder, with these Americans coming home, just some of the many diplomatic tensions going on around the world. All right, still to come here from the Hill. Other side of the break, J.D. Vance takes to the campaign trail. He's on the border. What's he saying and how the Harris campaign is responding? Plus, all of 46 seconds, that's it. This Olympian down and out in tears. How this moment right here suddenly caught the attention of those trying to win the White House. We'll explain when the Hill returns.
NewsNationNow.com has a new look. The most trusted news website has more breaking news and updates from across America. Engage with your favorite News Nation shows and personalities. NewsNationNow.com. News for all America.
To highlight the border, attacking Kamala Harris, the vice president, as the quote-unquote failed border czar. Today, the vice presidential candidate, Senator J.D. Vance, spoke at the southern border in Arizona, pitching voters on why they should, in his view, choose Trump's policies over Harris's.
Let's play devil's advocate here. Tell me, has Kamala Harris done anything you've asked her to do? She is the border czar. Has your border czar done anything you've asked her to do? And the answer is no. That is a disgrace. And to every American watching this, it will stop, but only if you elect Donald J. Trump president.
All right, so to play devil's advocate in his own words, Mick, Lauren, I'll start with you. Border encounters in July. I'm going to start with the Republicans here. Don't worry, I'm getting to the Democrats in the next one. Border encounters in July. Lowest monthly number since February 2021, down 20% from June.
Because of the asylum policy Biden implemented with executive powers that he claimed he didn't have for 6+ months. It's a really hard message to send. Now, some Democrats and Republicans will say numbers of crossings dropped during the summer anyway. Who knows what to attribute the success to? But in part, the Biden administration is saying this is our policy.
So if you're telling your students at Princeton, she's trying to go on offense here after a really rough last 3 years. She's trying to go on offense now here down the home stretch. Whose side would you rather take, just purely from a political?
I mean, I'll tell you, because I have a lot of empirical research on Kamala Harris. I also know she was AG of a border state and a senator from a border state, and I think it's extremely insulting to her to say she can't answer basic questions about immigration. That's a layup for any Democrat from a border state, any person from a border state, and she's extremely competent and should be very good at answering those questions. So I think that there are performance-based issues there. I don't think it's necessarily everyone's biased against her.
What about?
I think the immigration questions are extremely reasonable on the record.
And so every time that we hear J.D. Vance or Donald Trump, Mick, go down to the border, and she's going to say, look at those numbers, they're coming down.
Yeah, and the numbers, I'll give you a kind of an intellectual answer and then a political answer.
Okay.
The intellectual answer is interesting because of the two data points. February of 21 was pretty much, that's the end of the Trump policy, right? Because Biden takes over in late January and then changes his policies, right? So there's one part of the analysis. And of course, now you're in July of 2024 when it's 120 degrees in the desert, okay? So the data is really kind of cloudy. But that doesn't make any difference because here's the real answer. People don't think the border is secure. Period. End of story. They've seen all the things on television. They've decided that it's not secure. The question is, will they blame Kamala Harris for it or not? You could sit all day and make the intellectual arguments. Oh, my goodness, we're down by 14%. People, that doesn't register.
We looked at the numbers, Max. February of 2021, the first full month of the Biden-Harris administration, to September of 2023. Before they started negotiating in the winter of last year, the border deal. 6.29 million encounters at the southwest border. Are the American people going to forget that?
I feel so bad for my Republican friends.
Why? Tell me.
I really feel bad for you because I can just imagine the bumper sticker now. Things were really bad 2 years ago. Vote for us. Come on, look at the numbers, okay? And what we all do collectively know is that when it came time for a real long-term, bold legislative fix that would finally solve this issue for the long term, it was Donald Trump.
Let me ask you one question.
Let me ask you one question.
And the Republicans...
Let me get Scott in here, and then I'll give you the final word.
And you see, that's a really important point, because the Republicans... That's the bumper sticker for the Democrats, that the Republicans and Donald Trump killed the deal when they had an opportunity to add border guards, add technology, and add money. So the Republicans can't outrun that either. And you want to have a debate about the immigration and going on the offensive? We can go on the offensive. We can talk about what it was, but this is what it is now. Republicans want to go back.
Final word
to talk about the future.
Do you all really want the election to be about immigration?
No, it's going to be about abortion. I guarantee you.
All right. Okay. Meantime, a gender identity controversy in an Olympic boxing match is now an election issue in the race for the White House. It took 46 seconds, that's it, for the Italian Angela Carini to abandon her chance for an Olympic medal. She called the match off after her Algerian opponent delivered a powerful punch, sending the Italian to her knees in the ring. Now, that opponent was disqualified to compete in the 2023 World Championship after failing a gender eligibility test administered by the International Boxing Association. But an Olympic spokesperson ahead of the boxing match said that the opponent is female. Former President Donald Trump took to Truth Social. He said, "I will keep men out of women's sports." And here is Jim Jordan, Republican congressman who has a sports background. Men shouldn't compete against women in women's sports. Think Kamala Harris agrees? I told you I would start with the Democrats here. How are you going to answer this one?
This is a tough issue for the Democrats. And, we were talking earlier that this comes back to parents, right? No one cares about Olympic sports. But, and I say this as the father
of a brand new little girl.
Of a little girl that you don't want her at a disadvantage in high school sports or college sports. And undoubtedly, the Democrats should be very firm and clear. And there's a line to walk here where you can absolutely be bold and ethical in and around human rights and respecting people's choices while also being very clear on this issue. But the last point, this is what the Republicans want to talk about. And they want to talk about these little niche issues, Olympic sports, overseas sports, because they're losing on the border, they're losing on jobs, they're losing on economic growth, they're losing on every
How is it a niche issue? It's the Olympics. It's the most central focus.
I'm gonna go home and think about paying my bills with the Olympics, or think about the price of gas because of the Olympics. Come on, no one cares.
By the way, I believe right now this is the most trending story on Google. So this is sort of making the rounds all around. By the way, from Folsom Prison at Capitol Hill, a statue of Johnny Cash will soon be added to the National Statuary Hall collection, courtesy of his home state of Arkansas. The collection is made up of statues donated by states to celebrate important figures in their history. With each state, I did not know this, allowed, Mick, the congressman knew this. Each state is allowed up to 2 statues.
Who lost? Who got taken?
Yeah, that's my question. Who came out? Somebody had to come out.
Then Governor Asa Hutchinson commissioned the Cash statue back in 2019. He will be the first professional musician in the collection. The bronze likeness of the man in black will reportedly be 8 feet tall and depict him carrying a Bible and a guitar. I believe there was a Civil War figure.
My grandfather came in second place for the design of the Hawaii statue.
For the design of it, all right. Really?
Yeah, this is Rose family lore, always second place.
So if you want to come, if you got a trip to DC and you want to see Johnny Cash, he's here.
Is it going to be a black statue? Is the question? Or is it going to be one of those bronze color? I mean, he is the man in black. Are they going to do it in the proper?
You're the
color?
2 members of Congress. You tell me how that works.
Do you know your two people from your state?
How's your problem?
Coming up, other side of the break, the military, $11 million, and The Rock. How a mega marketing deal to boost recruitment may have backfired. Leland Vitter, other side of the break. Stay with us. All right, welcome back here to the Hill on News Nation. So before we say goodbye, here's a story that caught our eye. The U.S. Army's recruiting woes continue, you could say. Now, just months after signing an $11 million marketing deal with the United Football League and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the Army might be having a little bit of buyer's remorse. A new report showing the UFL deal was, quote, so catastrophic it led to a projected loss of 38 enlistments. And for The Rock's part, the deal called for the superstar to make 5 social media posts, but he ended up only making 2. Leland Vitter, host of On Balance. I was just talking to Lauren Wright because, she knows her stuff when it comes to celebrity. She said she said you can basically overestimate the value of marketing, but folks like The Rock in the political arena, you never can really underestimate sort of where they might go from here.
And you may never underestimate the few, the proud, the Marines who keep making their recruiting goals. It goes back to if you have a good product to sell, nothing helps a good product more than good advertising. And that, I think, when you see what the Marines have leaned into